the survival crisis clause. What this Japanese legal term really means, its origins, its history, and the hidden risks. Introduction. Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful and least understood phrases in modern Japanese security policy, Sonnritsu Kiki Jitai, or in English, a situation that threatens the survival of the nation. This phrase entered Japanese law in 2015 as part of the new security legislation, and recently it has become central to debates about Taiwan, the U.S.-Japan alliance, and Japan's military posture. But here's the truth. This is not just a technical legal term. It is a political weapon built out of language, a tool that can legitimize Japanese military action far beyond its borders.
Let's break down exactly how.
1. The linguistic roots. A classical Chinese word reborn as a modern security trigger. The word Sonnritsu Kiki is not modern bureaucratic Japanese. It comes from classical Chinese, where it meant to continue existing, to survive, or to remain standing. In other words, Sonnritsu isn't about mere existence. It's about whether you can keep existing in the future. Japan adopted this term during the Meiji era, when vast amounts of Chinese and Western legal vocabulary were poured into the new Japanese state. Over time, Sonnritsu became an authoritative, almost sacred word in official discourse. The survival of the nation. The foundations of national survival. When politicians use it, they're invoking the life-or-death stakes of the entire nation. 2. Kiki Jitai, the classic Japanese bureaucratic strategy of neutral language. Kiki Jitai literally means crisis situation. But the key is the word jitai, suka, a hallmark of Japanese administrative language that transforms actions into states, removing agency, responsibility, and emotion. Instead of
intervention,
attack, military involvement, you get recognizing a situation, responding to a crisis state. It sounds neutral, technical, unavoidable. When you combine the terms, you get a crisis situation in which Japan's continued survival is in danger. And that sounds like something no country could ignore. 3. 2015. Why this term became the legal key to Japan's use of force. In 2015, under Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, Japan passed the most significant security reform since World War II. The core goal: to allow Japan to exercise a limited form of collective self-defense. And the legal trigger, the switch that determines when Japan can use military force even if it is not attacked, was defined as Sonnritsu Kiki Jitai, a survival-threatening situation. Legally, it means if a country closely tied to Japan is attacked, and that attack creates a clear danger to Japan's survival, Japan may use military force, even if Japan itself was not attacked. This is an enormous shift from the original post-war interpretation of Article 9 of the Constitution, which allowed force only when Japan was directly attacked. In short, Sonnritsu Kiki Jitai is the legal gateway for Japan to join wars it is not directly involved in. 4. Historical parallels. Japan has used national survival to justify military action before. Although the phrase itself is modern, the logic behind it is deeply rooted in Japanese modern history. 1. The First Sino-Japanese War, 1894. The government argued, if Korea falls under another power, Japan's survival is at stake. This narrative helped justify the war and the annexation of Korea and Taiwan. 2. The Russo-Japanese War, 1904. The government warned that Russia's presence in Manchuria threatens the very survival of the empire. This paved the way for a preemptive Japanese attack. 3. The Manchurian Incident full-scale invasion of China. Military leaders insisted, if China unifies, Japan will lose its living space. The Japanese race cannot survive. This survival logic became the ideological fuel for expansion and eventually the Pacific War. In all three cases, an abstract, national survival threat was used to justify aggressive military action. The rhetorical pattern is unmistakable. 5. Why today's politicians invoke it, especially regarding Taiwan. Recently, Japanese politicians, particularly conservative security hawks, have repeatedly said, A Taiwan contingency could constitute a Sonnritsu Kiki Jitai. The reasoning is straightforward. Japan depends on sea lanes that pass near Taiwan. Energy supplies could be disrupted. U.S. forces would act, pulling Japan into the conflict. Therefore, Japan's survival could be threatened. Therefore, Japan could legally use force, no matter whether the threat is direct or indirect.
Thus,
Sonnritsu Kiki Jitai is the linguistic pathway that turns a Taiwan crisis into a legal justification for Japanese military action. 6. 3 hidden dangers behind this innocent-looking phrase. Danger 1. It's deliberately vague. Survival.
fondamental danger.
Overturned rights. Clear threat. None of these terms are quantifiable, meaning the government has enormous discretion to declare such a situation. Danger 2. It disguises offensive action as defensive necessity.
Intervention.
Preemptive cooperation. Joining a conflict. Sound aggressive, but call it a survival crisis situation, and suddenly it feels like we have no choice. We must protect ourselves. This is purely defensive. Language reshapes public perception. Danger 3. Historically, this logic has led Japan into escalating conflicts. 1894. Korea is essential to our survival. War with China. 1904. Russia threatens our survival. Preemptive attack. 1931-37. We need living space to survive. Full invasion of China. The pattern is clear. Japan has repeatedly used vague survival threats to justify wars of escalation. Modern constitutional scholars fear that Sonnritsu Kiki Jitai could become a similar slippery slope. Conclusion. A harmless-sounding phrase with immense power. Sonnritsu Kiki Jitai sounds bureaucratic, neutral, even technical. But beneath that surface lies a powerful political logic, a linguistic tool, a legal mechanism, a historical pattern, and a potential pathway into future conflicts. Understanding this phrase isn't just a matter of legal theory. It's a matter of understanding how language can open the door to war, quietly, gradually, and without many people noticing.